I'd like to welcome our new board members. I'm glad we could greet them with a long closed session meeting, and apologies for the public out here waiting for us, but we get our business done. I'd like to report out that I attended the LACSTA meeting, which is the Los Angeles County School Trustees Association. The topic this month was a concern about, it was a blend of mental health, having the appropriate supports in place. And one of the things they touched on that I see at work also is this idea that there's, you sleep 8 hours a day, the other 16 hours is spent between doing some work and then checking your Instagram account every 5 minutes, and adults are kind of modeling this behavior, so kids don't get it that, okay, now it's time to work, now is dedicated study time. In the work environment, you have people that are looking at, by order of where I work, coming back to work after 2 years and having to make child care arrangements and stuff. And the ones that of us that have been there, we kind of, have normalized to what we do. But there's a concern that people have lost boundaries in dealing with social media, and everything's on a computer now, so the kids all do their work on the computer, and they're encouraging people to have students understand there's balance, and it seems that everybody's offering those suggestions at 60 years old and still uses a dial phone. So it was interesting to me, but if you want your kids to model the behavior of doing schoolwork and focusing on schoolwork, then kind of model that behavior along with them so they have something to look at. The holiday presentations were incredible. I was there on Tuesday night. My week's been crowded, but there were so many people there, I thought the fire marshal was going to come in and shut it down. There were people dancing in the hallways and all over, and it was really put together well. And I had a visit this morning from somebody at work who knows I sit on a school board and was asking me questions. What do you do when somebody or interest group hijacks a holiday presentation and starts sending out some kind of message? And I won't get into all that, but I thought, I don't see that kind of stuff here. It's about the kids singing and everybody having a good time, and understanding that staff is doing all this stuff way after hours and everything, and it made me very proud of the community I live in. Staff, I want you to take the time here. I think you got almost 3 weeks. Take a break, wind down a little bit. Know you did a great job. I have watched in my time on the school board, especially the last 2 years, going back a year and a half, it seemed like staff was having to deal with something new every week. You can do this, you have to be on the computer here, and it was very, very dynamic, and I still wonder if people have ever gotten back to the point where they touch kids in the classroom and reach the individual that they want to reach. I hope we haven't lost that. But the teachers are the ones that have control of what's going on in the classroom. So if we have success here, it's because of them. I want to talk a little bit about this. I think I got the first copy of this. When we talk about budget, I'm going to dive deep into charters. You're still going to have Ken. The closer I get here, the rowdiness is supposed to be down there, and the controversy gets introduced down there. But I'm hoping somebody takes my place. Anyway, I want to talk about this, and I'm going to touch on this in very serious ways during the interim budget thing. But somebody had a party for the SPED kids, and one of the things you'll hear me asking about in the warrant register, if you pay close attention, I start calling out expenses. And some things are very expensive, and if you drop the ball there, you become very, very expensive. And there was a party, and everybody got together. It wasn't a school party, but it was school staff had a party. And some of the people who need help the most in this community were invited to the party. And if you know special education at all, You know that a lot of it starts out with kids that need speech language support, physical therapy, AP, anything that helps children have better access to education. But the older the kids get and the more they spend time in the sped room and they're not mainstreamed because it's just not in their capability, the more life becomes bleak unless you have the community support. And if you went to this party, if you didn't, Tracy told you what it's all about. Here, get this. I can have Tammy sign it for you. Thank you, Tracy. But if you went into that party, what you saw was the kids doing life skills that they're making things, they're decorating things, they're constructing things, they're doing what they need to do to be independent. And that's the focus. So when I hear that we have a program at the high school now where, face it, the kids that are in the special day class in high school, it's a life skills program. So we finally brought a life skills program here where the focus is not, you know, just babysitting people, it's giving them life skills. So this article talks a lot indirectly about what the school staff is doing to change the model for the most vulnerable people that gives them some kind of dignity in their adulthood. So thank you, everybody. I mean, Miss T, you know what I'm talking about. Thank you. This one's going to be rough. Please hold the people at Agua, Dulce in your mind, the staff, the families, the teachers. They've had something happen over this very, very sad, and that's all I'm going to say. But if you know anybody from over there, they're part of our community. Reach out and make sure everybody's okay, and make sure you do anything you can. I will say to the new board members, there is, on your Friday letter, there's usually an update that kind of tells you in detail about some of the stuff that comes. So once you see that, there are always people, I don't even like to see this come up on the screen at all, because there are people that are competing for jobs or have to be approved. So that's kind of low key. You've probably heard me ask 100 times, and I'll explain why. You'll hear me say, has there been any aging on positions? In other words, drag your feet, don't hire somebody in the interest of not filling a position for financial reasons. That's why I asked that question exactly. That's kind of where our purview starts and finishes, outside of the superintendent telling us what's going on Friday. But I'll ask that now. Has there been any purposeful aging? Are each and every position on the list is vacant being actively recruited for right now? So I could publicly humiliate you and say, so tell me about this position. Is it on whatever, blah, 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 how many bites have you had, all of that? And the answer would be, you are actively recruiting and none of these positions are frozen or we're dragging our feet to save money. Is that accurate? That's why I asked that question. Okay, I'm done. You will recall when we first started discussing the grant, this was $1 million that was brought onto the table. Thank you. That's $1 million that we didn't have. I believe Dr. Sahakian wrote the grant application on the 9th of June while there were other things going on, but thank you for giving us $1 million. I expressed a concern back then. It's nice that we got this money coming in for the first 3 years, which is $333,000 a year. I'm kind of hoping that you'll watch out for organizational efficiencies where we can blend this in somehow. I read the job description. It's very thorough. Has this been run by the associations? Yes. So there wasn't any negative input from the associations. Is there supervisory capacity in here that would affect other employees?
In the job description, no.
Okay, so there's no classified employees that would answer to this person.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what this looks like, everybody, is they sunshine things. We want to talk about this. We want to open up the whole contract. This is very touchy stuff. This is the stuff that happens back here. So when somebody is standing at the microphone and says, you should do this for this, and I say, no, I'm not, then all of a sudden I got sucked into bad faith bargaining. So I'm constantly telling people that. They come back to us. I don't want to put you two on the spot, but they say, hey, we want to look at this part of the contract. The district might say, we want to look at this part of the contract. The bargaining teams come together. They have attorneys or not. They come to us every once in a while as board members, and they don't tell us what's going on, but it's like, we're talking about this, we're talking about this. The financial guy comes in. I say, is this going to put you into deficit spending? Will it pass the 1200 series of sunshine laws where you have to tell the public we're making arrangements to do this? And when it circles through that and they finally come together and say, I'm good, they bring it to us. And if we vote no, yeah, we're bargaining in bad faith. So the moral of the story is, without revealing anything from back there that I shouldn't, I haven't had to have any contentious situations or draw hard lines. It looks like the team knows where they're going. Everybody understands the fiscal impacts, and the fiscal impacts do not put us into deficit spending. This would be my same comments for the next item. So team, thank you, both of you, for coming forward with something that works for you in your personal interest and in the financial interests of the district. Thank you. First off, the end of last year, did LACO nail you for any fund balance transfers and say, oh no, you can't do that? Have you ever had that happen since you took the reins? Imagine that. I remember 4 years ago when you started, or thereabouts, there was $4 million of charter revenue. How much charter revenue do you have right now? Revenue means profit. Okay, so the next tricky question on the charter stuff, how much did you have to pay out more than?
I don't have that figure on top of my head, but we can put it together.
So in other words, you're able legally to collect this much. I'm concerned when that amount you have to pitch in to run the charters, because this is like you're selling gas and somebody else's and you're paying them to sell gas to put you out of business.
So for the charters, we can legally charge up to actual cost or up to 1%.
So there's nothing informing your budget that says you have substantial things. That's zero, because if you're doing anything other than that, it's illegal. So what I'm asking you, is there a substantial number that the district is having to contribute to liabilities coming from the charters at this point, where you would say, I got $500,000 going out in a lawsuit?
No.
Okay, good. So, I forgot to give you your Valentine's Day card first. I appreciate the dynamic way in which you're able to discuss the budget freely. I remember the days when the superintendent had to nod at people and tell them what to say and not say. So I have a great deal of confidence how you operate, but here we go. My concerns are SPED liability. When you hear me asking questions about the, is this a monthly fee? Dropping the ball in SPED is very, very dangerous. When you go into a due process hearing and you say, I want 40 minutes, and the district offered me 38, the hearing officer is going to throw you out. But when you miss child find, when the parent is doing the child find, when you are not having IEPs on time and stuff, and you get into a due process hearing, the hearing officer guy, you guys aren't even hitting the mark on anything. So I'm always concerned about SPED liabilities. I just held up a newspaper that said the parties that they're having for our SPED kids on people's own time mimic a life skills program. So I don't see a huge issue here unless somebody wants to create one generally, and there are people that do that, and you just have to depend that you're calendaring and all your processes in order to avoid that. But I want to talk to you about charter liability. I've been harping on this for a little bit. I don't know how well people read between the lines. As I said, when I move this way, I get more punctual and succinct in what I'm going to say, and the clown circus goes away. If I approve a petition, and the petition is described to me as a school that's going to function maybe online, and then I get wind that that online functioning school is now turned into something that's managing 3 other schools, and you've got blending going on between school district, that's a huge liability to me. Because if it's not described that way in our petition, it's not functioning legally by description. And if our oversight is such that we're not identifying that it's not operating legally, then suddenly a disgruntled employee or something else, I won't get into details here, suddenly becomes, and we're named, and whether or not it's real, we're defending ourselves, and we know what attorneys cost from the look at this warrant register. I want everybody doing everything they can around here to understand our function as employees, administrators, and especially board members when it comes to running up legal fees. But that said, I have a concern that our charters are not getting off out in the weeds outside of what they're supposed to be doing, and if they are, they need to come and tell us what that intention is, because they are not the County Office of Education, and they are authorized by us. And when they start doing things like that, it's going to become increasingly unattractive for me to support that. I do not want 300 kids in this room staring at me because the adults in the back room didn't do what they're supposed to do. I don't have a problem shutting people down. The next thing I'm worried about is the drop dead number for us to be self-sufficient is 1,400 kids. We do not have 1,400 kids. Now, I don't know where we would put the other 500 right now. This building is not DSA approved. This used to be a library. Those used to be sped rooms. The money for charters is coming so fast that we had to dump it on something. I guess this is what we got. But we do not have floor space. And the way I look at this problem is floor space is the critical element here, even if it's one room at a time. I would suggest, and I said this before, I don't need to have an open session discussion or some town hall where everybody comes in and yells at us. I know what to do. But I need to know when we can start putting rooms on here and do it in a way that we're not breaking up. Like if somebody comes up with the idea, I'm going to put all the SPED kids in one room over here. Well, what does ADA say about inclusion on that? So you got all these different things hitting you from all different kinds of angles. We need floor space. And if I'm seeing big enrollment swings coming from one school, and those enrollment spaces are being backfilled by more people from somewhere else, good for them, but I'm dying for floor space here, and I don't think we have enough DSA approved sites to fill this if we put 500 kids on. So what that means is somebody up here needs to start thinking about pushing for how do we fund 40, and if I want to hear about something on the future agenda item, it's how you're going to put on floor space and what your realistic parameters are and what your constraints are to do that, and kind of look at them numbers that Arona ran up when King was here and talked about what it would cost. I'm not going to ask for a bond, but everybody's looking at that big number of reserve, and nobody understands this warrant register tonight had a value of about $1.22 million, and that comes in to you all the time. So when people are talking about big reserves, I want to know what you could do if I told you I want to put $5 million a year into renovations and have DSA come in here and approve them, what that would do to your long-term numbers. Those are the kinds of mature financial discussions I want to have with you. What else do I have here? In those hold accounts, do you have, again, I don't talk about what happens back there, but do those include any settlements agreements that you know to exist? Have you taken those into account?
Yes.
Do you have any hold on any huge anticipated legal liabilities that you might encounter?
Yes.
Okay, and those are something you don't share with the public, and you certainly don't bring them into the board until it's time to discuss things on an individual level. Okay. A question I think that would be helpful for the board to understand is this. Let's say you have a huge reserve, like I have a savings account, and then all of a sudden I go freak out, buy a bunch of dirt bikes and jet skis and, you know, all that kind of thing. And I am deficit spending. In other words, I'm spending more than my paycheck brings in, but I'm digging into all this big money that I got from Grandpa's will, right? How does the county look at deficit spending? Does it trigger anything regardless of your reserve? So the county would come in and tell you, we're going to figure out how you're going to spend your money. I don't care how much money you got in the bank, but it's burning up. Because I think the county is smart enough to understand when you start spending 1.2, 2.1 million dollars every time one of these comes around, you have an enrollment crash, a couple big lawsuits. The next thing you know, you're going, I'm looking bad. What I am seeing on the end run is you're down 10%, and then it starts to climb back up. You're still losing money off of your reserve at the 2 and 3 year.
No, they're sorry, they're increasing. It's increasing by 11,600,000 to 11,700,000. Then it's going up to.
But I don't want to compare costs. What do those red numbers mean at the bottom?
That's just for me to highlight.
It's leaking a little bit. It's
the change in reserve. This red doesn't mean bad per se. Sorry, these should have been green.
But I remember the days when this district was going into negative certification because those numbers are below 4. So keep your numbers up. But at the same time, I do think the public is going to wonder how you're sitting on, 70%, but yet we can't open up a school and that kind of thing. So if I move into that chair next year, you know what my focus is going to be. I want rooms open back up, and they need to be DSA approved.
Yeah, we've been discussing that with this.
Yeah, I think you got some numbers in the background. I think the numbers are probably not that good anymore because there's been construction cost escalations and materials and supply chains, and we can say those are all excuses, but they're the reality of us that run operations. So as always, exemplary. Thank you for being able to discuss things as we go, and I'm looking to see what the county has to say about your report. Thank you. So I'm glad we looped around. Here's the problem with the charter funding now. Before, it was an incentive. We were going into negative certification. I don't begrudge the people that came up with the plan, and they got away with it as long as possible till I can't believe that the state wouldn't just say, but they got Judge Lancelot Link down in San Diego County telling somebody in the state something that the state should have done. But at the end of the day, here's the problem. We were being accused of you're just passing. I sat out there and watched 10-minute discussions, and then I got up here and got nailed. But at the end of the day, there is no financial thing in it. And suddenly you got one person managing 13 things. And I'm up here telling you, you need to watch what's going on in the corporate structure. I hope everybody's reading between the lines here. I've asked somebody to come up here. Now, this is probably the 6th time to stand up there, even as with their attorney, to tell me what they're doing. And instead, I think people are counting votes and trying to calculate who's going to vote what up here. There will be difficult questions that whoever's up here cannot ignore. But at the end of the day, here's the problem with where we're at. We've gone full circle to the point where if I had to put you telling me exactly what you feel as just the financial guy, it gets pretty easy to see the charters as a financial liability potentially. And if you're just running numbers, that doesn't take into account what people do for kids and give them the reason that those charters exist. And sometimes it's pretty easy for board members to start going, well, there's too much risk there, and that's not why charters exist, and that's how we get ourselves in trouble. I just wanted on the record that I see some problems out there. I do not want to hear somebody that was cut loose of a charter or some sped case or something flying back in here, and all of a sudden we're looking at having you dig up money because we've got an excess. So that was my whole point. I try to be as politically correct as possible. Yeah, this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier, the 1200 series. In the municipal environment, you may have an administrator that wants to be very popular with the teachers union representative. I'm not sure that's a problem here. But what ends up happening is you start guaranteeing people money and give them big raises, and then in the back end of that, you got Me Too contracts. So if they get it, everybody gets it. And this is a taxpayer right thing where you're required in where I work, after we come to agreement, after everybody approves it, then it opens up to public hearing where the public can stand up and we participate in Transparent California. But this is a requirement, and it's a fail-safe to keep these agreements where you've got superintendents being tight with the teachers union and the taxpayer being victimized in the end. That's certainly not happening here. Okay, I like it that you've got control of your campus and that you're making recommendations to bring them to them. The two things I don't like about this, I don't want somebody coming back like 14 years from now and saying, bring back the Vasquez Mustang from 1963. We're not going to have any of that. I don't want that. So the students are actually going to participate. And how dare you minimize the death of Woodsy Owl, Tim? Really? I like owls. At least call me to speak at the owl's eulogy, would you? I like owls more than anything.
We'll take the drawer off and put it in your truck.
Excuse me, I'm not speaking to you, owl killer.
We'll take a picture of you next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
We all had a name?